Painting hair, there's many different ways about painting different types of hair. And then there's different ways on how to paint the same kind of hair. Like, for example, Schoolism instructor Jason Seiler would paint hair differently than I would paint hair. So this is going to be just one of the ways that I would paint straight hair. Okay, straight hair. It's going to be a redhead. And so this is how we are going to begin. I'm going to begin with just this bald model to work from. Okay, usually I would paint the hair and the person's head at the same time, but for demo purposes, this is what we're going to do. So in the very beginning, what you can do is you can just do a drawing of the hair. Okay, so however you want the hair to be styled, you can just use simple drawings to show that. Okay, but you want to start off with obviously an idea of the hair that you want to do. After you do that, what you want to do, or what I do, is I will make a silhouette. Just using one tone and just painting over top, just creating the silhouette of the hair. Okay, second thing I would do is this is for red hair specifically, and you can see that the color I chose to go darker with is one that is a lot more saturated. It's a lot more saturated because it's also in that very warm orangey red hue, and that's going to help to bring out the redhead in her. Of course, different colors of light will also affect this whole entire situation. So this is just considering that it's daytime. Okay. And with that tone, I would paint in as much as I can, keeping in mind that there's going to be areas here that are going to be all about the lighter details, and the darker details, these details I'm painting in, don't actually belong there, right? Where they're concentrated is very much towards the darkest parts. Okay, after I do that, now I have a much clearer idea of the general design of the hair. And now to kind of give me that extra bit of realism, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a bit of shadow. Okay, some pretty dark shadow here. Now this shadow is determined by the other shadows on her face, which helps me to determine how dark should these shadows get. Okay, and I want to put on a little bit of makeup, so to go with her haircut, and let's move on from there. So after that, I'm going a little bit lighter. Now, just to reiterate, the very first tone I put on the silhouette is one that it's just slightly darker. You can see how slight that is. Right? You can see that the circle actually doesn't really move down very much at all. It just gets a bunch more saturated and moves down just slightly. The hue shifts a tiny bit towards the red. So where do you think the lighter tone will go? Will it go more towards the red or more towards the yellow? Well, the lighter tone, when we just had the two tones, goes more towards the yellow. So it would make sense that this lighter tone would also go more towards the yellow. But how much towards the yellow? Not much at all, right? If this is the silhouette tone, this is the new tone. Take a look at the hue. The hue actually changes perhaps just a slight tiny bit. You can see it just jittering just a tiny bit. The main thing to take notice is that it didn't go warmer, because all of a sudden it would be strange if as it gets darker, the tones get warmer from the silhouette tone, and then when we go lighter, it also gets warmer. That would seem kind of a bit more odd. Next layer we have here is even darker. So you can see I went darker first, then slightly lighter, and now darker again. Let's take a look at this tone. You can see that it gets quite dark, right? And it gets even more saturated. If we kind of peel away just for a second here, you can see that this is the first tone I painted with when dealing with the silhouette. Here is the second tone, and you see it gets slightly more saturated, a bunch darker, but slightly more saturated again. So there is a pattern to this. As the tones get darker, they're starting to get more saturated for the red hair. Take a look at the hue. What happens with that hue? It moves just slightly even more red. Right, so as you go darker, you want to try to make a pattern with this so that it makes sense. As we go darker with this hair, specifically, it's getting more saturated and warmer tones. As we go lighter, it's getting more and more towards the yellow. And you can see with this even lighter tone here, you can see that it's getting even more yellow. After that, we add in just a little tiny bit of details here. I'm just using a super small default brush and just painting in some single hairs to add in some finishing touches. Okay, and that's it. That's the redhead.